Just a very little bit there about who we are at Transport Focus, but I suspect most people know who we are. But really what we're about is bringing our understanding of the consumer experience to secure a fair deal for passengers. Stephen mentioned a bus forum that was in Manchester last week. I was at that too, and there was a lot of very, very good presentations. But one that really resonated with me was from a young man from Spain who was talking about trying to encourage students to use more bus services. And one of the key points that he made was give passengers what they want and not what we think they want. And what I really want to talk about just for about 10 minutes is around this and around the trust and consumer confidence that passengers should have in the railway, but particularly in the fare structure. So give passengers what they want, not what we think they want, and indeed not what is easiest for the industry. We carried out a piece of research a number of years ago really looking at the future of railway, and one of the key things that came out from passengers there was that it's all about my journey. Mark Carn mentioned that this morning around tailoring services for passengers and what they want, as did a lot of other speakers. So really it's about my journey and what do passengers want. So when it comes to passengers, passengers want choice. So with the introduction of the internet and all of that brings, there is more choice. So it's not necessarily getting rid of that choice, but choice does add complexity. So increased choice is something that passengers want. However, flexibility is not offered within fares within the UK. So the question around, do we have the highest fares in Europe? Some are, but some are not. So in the UK, a study that we did a couple of years ago, or it's quite a few years now, showed that actually advanced fares are very, very good value for money. However, for the commuter who has to get journeys at particular times, or the walk-up fare is extremely expensive. For Transport Focus, I travel around the country and I'm always looking for best deals. It's part of my job to do so. A few months ago, I needed to go to a family funeral from Ely in Cambridgeshire to Gloucester, and it was more or less having to do it straight away. And I was just astonished at how expensive it was. It was nearly £200. So having a situation where there was a family funeral and then to walk up and go, oh my gosh, blimey, that's really expensive. So in this country, we pay for flexibility. So we don't want to get rid of passenger choice. The challenge, I think, for the industry is ensuring that we explain fares and the choice of fares that are available. So what do passengers want? Transport Focus, everything that I'm saying today is based on what passengers tell us. A piece of research that we carried out fairly recently talks about what are passengers' top priority for improvement, and the biggest thing here is value for money. So value for money means both that the service is affordable, but that people feel it's worth the money that they're paying. And that really is important. So what we want to do is give people products for today's market. So in lots of people, when I talked about commuters, and if we think about season tickets, and in our day and age, really things do need to change. So, for instance, getting rewarded for going in off-peak. A lot of working arrangements have changed. We're not constrained completely to go Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Yet, if you have a season ticket that's costing you £4,000 or £5,000, then you're not going to think, oh, maybe I'll work from home until 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and then go in. You want to get the best value for what you're paying for. We're speaking to Tim Embley earlier at lunch, and his working sort of transport needs are being maybe 2 days in London, 1 day in Derby, 1 day someplace else. Season tickets don't meet that need. As an industry, we need to start thinking about what has changed. Piece of research that we carried out in respect to HS2 and what passengers want out of that clearly identified a need for not season tickets, but maybe something like 100 carnets that can be used when you want them. So the underlying fares anomalies. Split ticketing is an issue. Some passengers will continue to pay more than they need. The example there from Leicester to Aberystwyth is one that's probably familiar to a lot of people. But I want to give you an example of one that I came across just a while back. My sister was taking her son to a number of universities around the country. She lives in Coventry, and one of them was Bristol. So she phoned me and said, Linda, I've heard something about split ticketing. Is this something that I can do, or might I get into trouble for doing it? Because the fare was extremely expensive. So I explained to her that actually it is allowed within the conditions of carriage, and that it is something actually that a lot of companies are now beginning to advertise that passengers can do this. So I met her a while afterwards and said, did you do that? And she said, no. She said, I didn't do it because actually I felt it was underhand. She said, I was going to a university with my son and didn't want to feel that I was kind of cheating the system. To which her son said, Mom, in future, get the cheapest ticket and split the difference with me. But there is that sort of feeling that actually it is not maybe honest to split tickets, but actually it is allowable, but people don't know about it. Wanted to talk about ticket vending machines, a little bit of research that we've carried out on that. It's absolute nonsense, the sort of stuff that happens or doesn't happen within TVMs. So, for instance, if you go to St. Pancras, the Melton Mowbray is not on some of the machines. So the example we had there was 2 passengers travelling together. One went to one TVM and was able to get a ticket to Melton Mowbray. Another one went to another TVM and wasn't able to get it. And I mean, that's just complete nonsense. Off-peak tickets not showing in time to buy one and catch the first train on which the ticket is valid. So there's lots of things around TVMs that the industry really does need to get better. All of this leads to hassle for passengers. Some lead passengers to overpay. And this is the key point that I just want to concentrate on for just a few minutes, is that most undermine trust. Transport Focus fairly recently carried out a piece of research on the passenger relationship with the rail industry, and actually this has been picked up a couple of times already today. Coming back to me and my journey, the further you get away from the actual in-the-moment journey, the lower the satisfaction recorded. So it's really, what the research showed, unfortunately, is that actually there's a real sense from passengers that operators are not on their side. And when it comes to fares, there is not the confidence that operators are selling the best value or giving passengers what they want. So how brands build affinity and trust. So it's really important that you get the service elements correct, because that's basically what people are paying for. But passengers do want to feel that operators are on their side, and it's something that we in Transport Focus want to ensure that people are feeling that TOPs are on their side. So key relationship issues. So can I trust you to sell me the best fares? And this is another really key point here. So it's not only can I trust you to sell me the best fares, but actually if I make an honest mistake, there's really heavy policing if people get it wrong. As I said, travel around the country for Transport Focus, and sometimes I absolutely cringe when I see how some passengers are treated because maybe they just can't find a ticket at that time, or maybe they've made an honest mistake. Now, that's not to say that we feel that fraud should not be dealt with. It absolutely should be. However, there is a whole area that people do make genuine mistakes, and the complexity of fares adds to that. So I already mentioned desire for personalisation and control, but people want to be able to build long-term relationships. One thing also in speaking to Tim Embley earlier is the loyalty rewards. There's just not enough of that really in what passengers get offered. So what needs to change? So guide passengers to their ticket and don't make them guess what they need. Make sure that TVMs can sell the full range of tickets. The industry cites TVMs as being a very good means of getting tickets, but often they're just not fit for purpose. And also fix the underlying issues with the fares structure. Transport for Scotland, actually a couple of years ago with ScotRail, did have a look at all the anomalies within the transport structure there and actually did change quite a lot. The fares within the rest of the UK, of course, there's a lot more complex things there, but it can be done. Okay, so quick wins. So the things that we would like to see in the short term, but of course in the long term, it really is all about the stuff that we just talked about, integrated ticketing, smart ticketing, all of those things that passengers tell us that they want. So really want to have anytime tickets showing when the cheaper tickets are valid. Single leg pricing, ability to mix and match. And actually I just met with Southeastern Trains this week where they were talking about extending Oyster and making fares where you could go in the peak one way, but then not peak on the way back. It's all of those things that really do build trust. And also just that value for money, because value for money is all the things that we've been talking about. It's not just about cost, it's about punctual railways that makes passengers feel that the industry, and particularly the rail operators that they travel on, are very much on their side. So there is a lot to be done on fares, but to summarise, passengers do want choice, but with choice comes complexity. It should not be up to the passenger to always find the best fare. The industry should be ensuring that as passengers we are getting a good deal and indeed showing that travelling by rail is very good value for money.
Absolutely, this idea that you're made to feel that you're most likely to be skipping your fare or doing something wrong. There is that atmosphere around the whole idea of pricing. Now, if you had a situation where you had a post-pay, you know, what you were saying from the Australian point of view, paid afterwards, could you, the problem is, would people trust the operators to be swiping the best and most amenable fare, as in split ticketing or anything like that? The answer would be people wouldn't trust them.
The speaker from Abellio mentioned something that they're doing where they are piloting a system like that at the moment. So yes, there will need to be that trust between the operator and the passenger that what they're actually paying is being taken off. As part of some other research that we did, we talked about passengers were saying, so they should pay what they travelled, what they did. If they're delayed, they should pay less. If they don't get a seat, they should pay less. I mean, we talked a little bit about, you actually mentioned the sort of blue sky things around value for money and thinking ahead of a gym, for instance, on a train. All of these sort of things in the future. That research also showed that there should be maybe shops and doctors on the train.
Yeah. Yes, but the other thing is, and I noticed this because I'm such a regular passenger, is if there are delays, what you want is someone to come through the train and say, this is the way you get your money back for a delay after a half an hour, 2 hours. That never happens, ever. You have got to go and say, can I have the form?
I must say I have heard it because I travel around the country. Actually, there are operators who are beginning to do just that, and it's something that we really pushed. So if I'm delayed for over half an hour, I'm entitled to compensation over an hour, and actually the announcements are beginning to get out there. However, we feel that actually that's not going far enough. If we think about London and the South East in particular, lots of people have been delayed 10, 15 minutes each day, and yet they get no recompense. So there's that as well, and people really feel like they're being ripped off